The shuttle shuddered as it entered the thin atmosphere of Sigma 9. Outside the small window, jagged mountains rose like frozen waves, their peaks brushing the soft, pale sky. A harsh wind blew across the barren plains, kicking up dust that shimmered with a faint alien light. Dr. Lyra Rhine gripped the edge of her seat and watched silently. She had flown to countless colonies before, but there was something different about this place. Something tense, almost unspoken. She had been summoned urgently. An unknown illness had struck Commander Cale Dorr, the lead researcher of Outpost, Sigma. Official reports were vague, and the colony's distress call was almost desperate. Lyra had spent years as a field medic and xenobiologist, but even her experience did not prepare her for the weight of uncertainty she felt now. As the shuttle touched down with a soft thud, the ramp extended with a hiss. The wind rushed into the cabin, carrying the faint scent of iron and dust. A small team awaited her, 4 figures in standard colony suits, their faces partially hidden beneath visors. One of them stepped forward, a young man with a nervous, "Air, Dr. Rhine," he called, his voice tight. "I'm Lieutenant Harrow. Commander Dorr is not well. Please follow me." Lyra nodded and followed him through the narrow corridor that led to the main outpost. The walls were lined with humming panels and blinking lights, but there was a stillness to the place that was almost unnerving. The other colonists glanced at her briefly but said nothing. Whispers seemed to hang in the air, unspoken but heavy. At the far end of the corridor, a door led to the isolation ward. Harrow paused, his hand hovering over the panel. "He's in there," he said softly. "He hasn't been able to leave the bed for 3 days. None of the local medical protocols worked. We've tried everything we know." Alara's heart tightened. She had expected a patient in pain, yes, but the fear in the lieutenant's voice spoke of something more. She stepped forward, swiping her hand across the scanner. The door opened with a quiet click. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a soft, green glow emitted by the monitoring equipment. In the center of the room lay Commander Cale Dorr, covered by a thick white blanket. His head was propped on a pillow, but even in the dim light she could see how pale his skin was. Small beads of sweat dotted his brow, though the room was cold. For a moment she simply studied him. His chest rose and fell in shallow, irregular movements, and the faintest tremors ran through his hands. Something was very wrong. "Commander Dorr?" she said softly, approaching the bed. Cale's eyes fluttered open. They were sharp, intelligent eyes, though tired. "Dr. Rhine." His voice was weak, almost a whisper, but there was relief in it. "You came." "I'm here to help," she said gently. "I need to examine you closely, is that all right?" He nodded faintly, closing his eyes again as she began her careful inspection. She noticed immediately that his body was reacting in unusual ways. His temperature fluctuated rapidly, and faint, almost imperceptible markings ran across his skin, beneath the blanket. They pulsed with a subtle light, like tiny circuits embedded in flesh. Lyra frowned. She had seen alien nanites before, microscopic machines designed to interact with human biology, but she had never encountered them functioning in this way. Something had gone terribly wrong. Harrow stood quietly at the door, his posture tense. We didn't know who else to call," he admitted. "The other specialists said it was beyond their expertise. They warned us not to touch him. That's why we kept him isolated." Lyra nodded slowly. She understood the fear. Nanites were not naturally hostile, but when unregulated, they could alter the human body in unpredictable ways. Most colonies avoided experimenting with them unless absolutely necessary. "Cale," she said, crouching slightly so she could meet his eyes. "I'm going to help you. I need you to trust me, all right?" He managed a faint nod, his strength clearly limited. I trust you." She carefully pulled back the edge of the blanket to examine the markings more closely. They weren't injuries. They weren't rashes. They were active, microscopic machines embedded within his cells. They glowed faintly, pulsing in a rhythm that almost matched his heartbeat but irregular faltering. Lyra's mind raced. She needed to stabilize them, but without the proper equipment it would be challenging. Improvisation would be necessary, and every second counted. "I'll need a full diagnostic," she said to Harrow. "Vitals, cellular scans, anything you've recorded in the last 72 hours. Harrow hurried to a nearby console, typing rapidly. Lines of data scrolled across the screen. Blood pressure fluctuations, heart rate spikes, unusual cellular activity. Lyra scanned each line carefully, noting the erratic patterns. "It's worse than I thought," she murmured. "These nanites, they're malfunctioning at a cellular level. They're destabilizing his muscles, his organs. If I don't intervene quickly, his body could fail completely." Cale's hand twitched slightly and a soft groan escaped him. I didn't know." His voice faltered. "I thought I could control them." "You didn't know, because this was not supposed to happen," Lyra said firmly but with compassion. "I'm here now, I can help you." Harrow looked at her, worry evident in his eyes. Is it dangerous?" "Everything in this room is dangerous if handled incorrectly," she replied calmly. "But if I work carefully, I can stabilize him. I've done similar procedures before." For the next hour, Lyra prepared her equipment, arranging scanners, portable diagnostic tools, and a containment unit for the nanites. She worked silently, her focus absolute. Kyle watched her, his body trembling but his mind alert. The connection between healer and patient was growing, a silent acknowledgement that they were both invested in the fight to come. As she set up the first scanner, she noticed something subtle, a reaction in Kale's pulse. The nanites beneath the blanket weren't just malfunctioning, they were responding to external stimuli almost as if they were aware of her presence. "This changes things," she murmured. "They're alive in a way, but not hostile. Not yet." Kyle attempted a weak smile. I wanted them to help. I didn't know they could betray me." Lyra nodded. "It's not betrayal. It's malfunction. And I will fix it." Outside the isolation ward, the wind howled against the outpost walls. Inside, the room was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and the faint, irregular pulse of Kale's body beneath the blanket. Lyra worked steadily, feeling a mixture of anticipation and resolve. This was not just a medical challenge. It was a test of human ingenuity and courage. Hours passed and Kale remained mostly still, conserving his strength. Lyra monitored every fluctuation, every tiny signal from the nanites, noting patterns that could guide her intervention. She began formulating a plan, a delicate sequence of adjustments that could reset the nanites without harming his body. As night fell on the alien landscape outside, Lyra leaned back briefly, studying Kale. Despite his weakened state, there was a spark in his eyes, a testament to human resilience. He had faced the unknown alone for days, and now, with her help, he would not face it any longer. She whispered softly, more to herself than to him, "We can do this. Together." For the first time since her arrival, a faint warmth filled the room. Not from the machines or the lights, but from something uniquely human. Trust, determination, and the unwavering will to survive. And in that quiet moment, Lyra Rhine understood that her mission was more than saving a body. It was about restoring hope, about proving that even in the farthest reaches of space, human courage and care could prevail over the most alien threats. The outpost was silent around them, the wind a distant roar, but inside the isolation ward, two humans, one weak, one determined, prepared for a battle that would test every ounce of skill, intellect, and compassion they possessed. The fight had only just begun. The dim glow of the isolation ward flickered softly as Dr. Lyra Rhine adjusted the scanning equipment. Commander Kale Dor lay beneath the blanket, his chest rising and falling in shallow, irregular breaths. Though his body betrayed him, his eyes followed her every movement, sharp and alert. Lyra had spent the better part of the morning reviewing the initial diagnostics. The data from the outpost's monitoring system was troubling. Kale's cellular activity was erratic, far beyond the patterns she had ever seen. The nanites embedded in his body were not just malfunctioning, they were actively resisting external control. Every attempt to stabilize them caused unpredictable reactions: rapid heartbeat, muscle spasms, and sudden drops in oxygen saturation. She took a deep breath and leaned over him. "Kyle," she said softly, "I need to ask you some questions. Anything you remember about the experiment, no matter how small, could help me understand what's happening." Kale's hand twitched beneath the blanket. It was supposed to improve human endurance," he said, his voice weak. "Nanites in every major system, muscles, lungs, even my brain. They said it would make me stronger, faster, smarter." His voice faltered and he took a shallow breath. "I trusted them. I thought I could control it." Lyra nodded. "I understand. But the nanites are acting independently. Something triggered them to malfunction. I need to know if there were any unusual symptoms before it got this bad." Kale's eyes focused on the ceiling, recalling events through the haze of pain. "At first, I felt stronger. My endurance increased. My recovery was faster. But then, small tremors. Fatigue that came in waves. My body, it would seize up unexpectedly. I couldn't predict it." Ilara's brow furrowed. The pattern was familiar. Controlled nanite enhancement gone wrong. It was rare, but she had seen similar incidents in experimental colonies. What made this case more dangerous was the sheer speed at which Kale's body was deteriorating. "I'm going to run a more detailed scan," she said. "It will take a few hours. You need to stay calm and conserve your strength." Kale nodded, his hand gripping the blanket weakly. Do you think I'll survive?" Lyra smiled gently. "I won't know for sure until I finish the scans, but I promise, I'll do everything I can." She began the procedure, placing small, flexible probes on Kale's limbs and chest. The scanners hummed quietly, sending faint pulses of light across his body. The nanites responded immediately, their glow flickering like fireflies in his skin. Lyra watched intently, analyzing every shift and wave. Hours passed as she compiled the data. She noted the patterns. The nanites were unevenly distributed, concentrated in some areas while almost absent in others. Some nanites had fused with tissue in a way that made removal impossible without harming the surrounding cells. Others were dormant, waiting for a trigger to reactivate. "This is complex," she murmured, speaking aloud more to focus her thoughts than to anyone else. "Some of them are still functional, but most have mutated. They're unpredictable. We'll need a careful approach, step by step." Harrow, who had been standing quietly at the door, finally spoke. Can we even fix it?" Lyra looked at him, calm but serious. "It's possible. The nanites are not naturally hostile. They respond to stimuli. I can reprogram them to stabilize Kale's body, but it will take precision, patience, and constant monitoring. Any mistake could make his condition worse." Kale's eyes flickered open. "Then we don't have time to waste," he said firmly. Despite the weakness in his voice, there was determination behind it. "Do what you need to do. I'll cooperate." Lyra felt a surge of respect for him. Even in this state, he was choosing to face the danger with courage. "We'll start with a test," she said. "I need to interact with the nanites directly, monitor their response, and understand their behavior before full stabilization." She adjusted the probes to emit a mild, controlled signal. The nanites pulsed in response, their glow flickering rapidly. Kale's body trembled and a soft groan escaped him. It feels strange," he whispered. "Yes," Lyra replied calmly. "It's the nanites reacting. Focus on breathing slowly. We're observing, not correcting yet." For the next few hours, Lyra carefully mapped the nanites' behavior. She discovered that some areas of Kale's body responded positively to gentle stimulation, while others resisted any signal. Certain clusters seemed almost sentient, moving in patterns that suggested decision-making rather than simple reaction. "This is Remarkable, she murmured. I've never seen nanites respond with this level of coordination. They're trying to adapt to his body, but they're failing. Kale, exhausted, whispered, Does that mean they're alive? In a way, Ilara said thoughtfully. They have no consciousness like humans, but they interact with the environment in ways that mimic awareness. That's why it feels like your body is betraying you. The nanites are independent agents, but they can be guided. Harrow stepped closer. So, how do we guide them? Ilara turned to him, her expression serious. We'll need to carefully introduce control signals, like a gentle language they can understand. We can't force them, we have to work with them. Kyle looked at her, eyes weary but resolute. Then, let's start. I want to try. Ilara smiled faintly. Good. Your cooperation will help. First, I need to understand your limits. Any sudden movement, spikes in temperature, or irregular heartbeats can affect the nanite's reaction. You must remain calm and trust me completely. Kale nodded. I will. The first tests were slow. Ilara sent micropulses into the nanites, observing their responses. In some areas, the glow dimmed, then returned, signaling partial compliance. In others, the nanites resisted, creating tiny surges in Kale's muscles that caused spasms. Ilara noted each reaction carefully. Hours stretched into the evening. The wind outside howled against the outpost walls, but inside, the room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machinery and Kale's labored breathing. Ilara worked tirelessly, adjusting protocols, modifying signals, and recording every reaction. By late evening, she made a small breakthrough. One cluster of nanites, concentrated in Kale's arm, responded predictably to her control signals. Slowly, she guided them into a stable pattern. Kale's arm tremors lessened and the spasms ceased. Kale's voice was hoarse but filled with relief. It worked. My arm, it feels normal. Ilara nodded, keeping her attention focused. Yes, that's a start. One step at a time. Tomorrow we'll continue with other areas. Despite the progress, Ilara knew the journey ahead was far from over. The nanites in Kale's body were numerous and unpredictable, and each correction required careful calculation. Any misstep could reverse their progress, but she felt a quiet determination growing within her. This was more than a medical mission. It was a test of human ingenuity and compassion. Even in the harshest conditions far from Earth, humans could rise to meet impossible challenges. Kale's eyes closed again, exhaustion overtaking him. But he whispered softly, Thank you for not giving up on me. Ilara adjusted the blanket over him gently. I won't. Rest now. Tomorrow we continue. She stepped back, surveying the dimly lit room. Outside, the alien wind battered the outpost and the stars shone cold and distant in the sky. But inside, a spark of hope burned brightly. Two humans, united in purpose, had begun a battle not against an enemy, but against the unknown. And in that battle, courage, intelligence, and care would become the strongest weapons. Ilara sat in the quiet of the ward, reviewing the data once more. Patterns, anomalies, and signals. Each piece of information was a thread. If she could weave them together, she could stabilize Kale, and perhaps even discover new insights into the nanites' capabilities. Her mind was alert, but her heart was calm. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but she had seen the first signs of progress. Human perseverance, after all, thrived even in the face of alien complexity. And as she watched Kale breathe beneath the blanket, she whispered again to herself, We'll make it. Together. The first light of Sigma 9's twin suns filtered through the thin windows of the isolation ward, casting pale shadows across the room. Dr. Ilara Rhine sat hunched over the console, reviewing the data from last night's nanite tests. Each line, each fluctuation told a story of unpredictability, a story she had to understand before making the next move. Kyle Dorr lay beneath the blanket, still and quiet, but Ilara could sense the tension in his body. Even while asleep, Nanites pulsed within him, their faint glow like tiny stars moving beneath his skin. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice weak but determined as he opened his eyes. Are we ready to continue?" She smiled gently. "Yes, Kyle. But we need to go slowly. Each step builds on the last. Your body is fragile right now, and I need to make sure we don't push too hard." Kyle nodded. I understand. I want to help. I want to fight this." Lyra felt a surge of respect. His strength was not in his body, it was in his will. That would be their greatest ally. The first task of the day was to stabilize Kale's core systems. His chest and lungs had been irregular since the nanites began malfunctioning. Lyra placed the portable sensors carefully across his torso. The monitors flickered to life, displaying the subtle pulses of his heartbeat, the shallow rise and fall of his breathing, and the irregular glow of the nanites embedded in his muscles. "This is delicate," she murmured. "If the nanites react too strongly, your body could go into shock. We'll have to use a gradual approach." Kyle's eyes were steady. "I trust you." Lyra began the first phase, sending a controlled wave of biosignals to the nanites in his chest. The response was immediate. The nanites pulsed rapidly, their glow intensifying, and Kale's body trembled beneath the blanket. He gritted his teeth and whispered, It hurts. A little." "I know," she said softly. "I'm adjusting the frequency. Focus on breathing. You can do this." Minute by minute, she guided the nanites, coaxing them into compliance. Some resisted, creating small tremors in his muscles. Others responded almost perfectly, their glow synchronizing with the rhythm of his heart. The process required patience and precision, but slowly Kale's chest stabilized. His breathing became smoother, his heartbeat steadier. "Good," Lyra said quietly. "That's the first step. Your core systems are more stable now. Next, we move to the limbs." Kyle groaned softly as she lifted the blanket to examine his arms. The nanites in his muscles were more chaotic here, their movements irregular and unpredictable. Ilara's hands hovered over his skin, careful not to touch too firmly. "These nanites are stubborn," she said, studying the patterns. "But I see a way. If I send a layered signal, we can guide them gradually like a conversation." Kale's hand twitched involuntarily. "A conversation?" "Yes," she said, smiling faintly. "You'll see. I'll communicate with them and they will start listening." The process began. Gentle pulses, layered with precise timing, flowed through the nanites. Kale's arms trembled, then flexed slightly as the machines complied. His face twisted with discomfort, but he remained silent, focused on maintaining calm. Hours passed. Lyra worked tirelessly, sending signals, observing responses, and adjusting her approach. Slowly, Kale's body began to respond more predictably. Tremors lessened, spasms ceased, and the glow of the nanites became steady instead of chaotic. "You're amazing," Kale whispered, his voice filled with awe. I feel a little normal." Alara's eyes softened. "This is your strength, Kale. Your body is responding because you're fighting. We're partners in this, your will and my guidance." But even as progress was made, danger lingered. The nanites were not fully under control. Small clusters remained unpredictable, resistant to her signals. One misstep could send Kale into a sudden collapse, and there was no guarantee that the dormant nanites would not react violently later. The first crisis came in the late afternoon. A sudden spike in the nanite activity caused Kale's chest to jerk violently. He gasped for air, his body trembling beneath the blanket. Lyra acted immediately, sending a stabilizing pulse through the core nanites while adjusting the signals in his limbs. "Kale, focus on my voice, breathe. In, out," she instructed firmly. His breathing became erratic, then slow, then gradually steady as the nanites responded to her precise guidance. Sweat dotted his forehead and he whispered weakly, I thought I would lose control." You didn't, she said gently. You're stronger than you think. For the first time, Kale allowed himself a small smile. I feel hopeful. Lyra noted the improvement but knew the day was far from over. The nanites were still alive, still semi-autonomous, and their responses unpredictable. Each cluster was like a small civilization, requiring negotiation rather than force. As evening fell, Lyra prepared for the final phase of the day, a controlled stimulation of the dormant nanites in Kale's legs. These nanites had resisted all attempts at stabilization and were the reason Kale's mobility had been completely compromised. This is the riskiest part, Lyra explained. But if we succeed, your body will regain a level of control we haven't seen since the nanites malfunctioned. Kale's voice was determined despite his exhaustion. I'm ready. Lyra sent the first signals. The nanites responded with rapid pulses, causing Kyle's legs to twitch uncontrollably. He winced, biting his lip to suppress a groan. Lyra adjusted the frequency, layering subtle cues to guide the machines. Slowly, the twitching lessened, replaced by controlled movement. You're doing it, Kyle, she said softly. Feel your legs. Relax. Let the nanites follow my guidance. Minutes passed like hours. Kyle's body quivered with effort as the nanites resisted, then slowly synchronized with her signals. The process demanded everything she had, her focus, her intuition, and her steady hand. Finally, a breakthrough. The nanites settled into a stable pattern. Kyle flexed his toes, then his knees, the first voluntary movements in days. He looked at her with wide, exhausted eyes. I moved, he whispered, disbelief and relief mingling in his voice. You did, Lyra said, a small smile breaking through her tension. And tomorrow, we continue. Step by step, we'll bring your body back to full function. As Kyle rested beneath the blanket, his breathing now steady, Lyra reflected on the day's challenges. The nanites were more complex than she had anticipated, almost like a living organism trying to adapt to an unfamiliar host. But human ingenuity, persistence, and care were stronger. With patience and understanding, even the most alien of obstacles could be guided toward harmony. Outside, the wind of Sigma-9 continued to howl, rattling the outpost's walls. Inside, the quiet hum of machines and the soft glow of stabilized nanites filled the room. Two humans, connected by trust and determination, had taken the first real steps in a struggle that would define them both. Lyra leaned back, eyes tired, but focused. She knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps more dangerous than those faced today. But for the first time since her arrival, there was hope, a spark of human resilience that could not be extinguished. Kale's hand twitched, faintly beneath the blanket, almost as if acknowledging her presence. Thank you, he whispered, though he was too tired to speak more. Lyra placed her hand gently near his, careful not to disturb the nanites. No, she said softly. Thank you for trusting me. That trust, that is what keeps us moving forward. The isolation ward remained quiet, a sanctuary against the alien storm outside, and within it, two humans, one fighting against a body betrayed, the other against uncertainty and complexity, prepared for the next day, knowing that courage, intelligence, and compassion would be their strongest tools in the struggle within as the twin suns of Sigma-9 dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Lyra and Kale rested, but their minds were alert, their spirits unbroken. The battle with the nanites was far from over, and the outpost of Sigma-9 would witness a human determination unlike any other, a determination to reclaim a body, to master the unknown, and to prove that human courage could thrive even in the most alien of challenges. And in the quiet of the night, beneath the faint glow of stabilized nanites, Lyra whispered to herself, "We're not just surviving, We're proving what humans can do. The hum of the outpost's machinery was the only sound in the isolation ward as Dr. Lyra Rhine carefully adjusted the nanite stabilization sequences. Commander Kale Dorr lay beneath the blanket, his body still weak, but showing signs of improvement. His arms and legs now responded to small voluntary movements, and his chest rose and fell with a steadier rhythm. Ilara's mind, however, was far from calm. While the progress was encouraging, the data she had gathered earlier hinted at a dangerous vulnerability. One cluster of nanites deep in Kale's abdominal muscles had begun behaving unpredictably again. If left unchecked, it could trigger severe internal spasms or worse. "Ilara," Kale whispered, his voice weak but determined. I feel ready. We need to continue." She nodded. "We do. But today, we'll move carefully. This is the most unstable cluster, so any misstep could be dangerous. You must trust me completely." Kale's eyes met hers, a spark of courage and resolve shining through his exhaustion. "I trust you." Ilara took a deep breath and prepared the portable stabilization module. She adjusted the signal intensity to the nanites, sending a gentle, layered pulse into the cluster. Almost immediately, Kale's body reacted violently. His legs trembled, his chest heaved, and a groan escaped his lips. "Kale, focus on my voice," Ilara instructed firmly. "Breathe with me. In, out, in, out." His breathing was irregular at first, but with her guidance it gradually became steady. The nanites pulsed beneath his skin, their glow flickering, as they responded to her signals. Some clusters resisted, creating small spasms, but others began to synchronize with her pattern. Ilara's fingers flew across the console, adjusting frequencies in real time. "Almost there. Steady. Hold," she murmured. Kyle's body quivered beneath the blanket, yet he remained conscious, his eyes locked on hers. Finally, after several tense minutes, the abdominal cluster stabilized. Kyle exhaled deeply, sweat dampening his brow. I think it's working," he whispered, a mixture of relief and disbelief in his voice. Ilara allowed herself a brief smile. "It's working. Your body is responding, but we're not done yet." Even as she spoke, a new challenge arose. The outpost sensors detected a sudden energy surge outside. An unexpected solar flare was approaching. While it was harmless outside, it interfered with the electrical systems inside the isolation ward. The stabilization module flickered, threatening to disrupt the delicate balance she had achieved with the nanites. "Damn it," Ilara muttered. "We don't have much time. Kyle, we need to act fast. The power could fail any moment." Kyle's hand twitched beneath the blanket. Do what you must. I trust you." Ilara activated the backup battery and rerouted power to the stabilization module. The lights dimmed slightly, but the system remained functional. She kept one hand on the console, sending stabilizing pulses to the nanites while the other hovered near Kale, ready to react to any sudden movements. Minutes stretched into tension-filled moments. The nanites responded to her commands, but a few clusters resisted, creating unpredictable tremors in Kale's limbs. Ilara's focus never wavered. She adjusted the signals continuously, guiding the nanites like a conductor directing an orchestra. Outside, the solar flare passed, leaving the outpost in a temporary calm. Ilara exhaled, relieved but wary. The nanites were stable for now, but she knew the danger was far from over. Kale looked at her, exhaustion evident in his eyes. I can feel the difference. My body isn't betraying me as much." "You're doing remarkably well," Ilara said, keeping her voice calm. "Your body is responding because you're fighting alongside me. This is teamwork, Kale. You're showing incredible strength." Despite the progress, a subtle irregularity caught her attention. One cluster near Kale's spine began to pulse erratically. It wasn't severe yet, but if ignored, it could compromise his core stability. "I need to focus on one more area," she told Kale. This is critical. Your spine and nervous system must be synchronized with the nanites to prevent further instability. Kyle swallowed hard. I'm ready. Let's do it. Lyra sent gentle, layered signals into the spinal cluster. Kale's body reacted immediately, a wave of tremors running through him. His fingers curled and unclenched, toes flexed involuntarily, and his chest rose and fell rapidly. "Breathe, Kale. Focus with me," she shouted. Her hands moved quickly, across the console, sending precise adjustments to the nanites' frequencies. Sweat poured down her face as she monitored every pulse, every response. The minutes that followed were tense, filled with unpredictable spasms and sudden jolts. Kale's body shook beneath the blanket, but he remained conscious, guided by Ilara's calm and authoritative voice. "Almost there. Steady. Hold," she murmured repeatedly, her focus absolute. Then, slowly, the irregular pulses began to synchronize. The spasms lessened, the tremors faded, and the glow of the nanites became steady. Kyle exhaled deeply, a weak but genuine smile forming on his lips. I did it," he whispered, disbelief and relief mingling in his voice. "You did," Lyra said softly, her own exhaustion evident but tempered by relief. "Your body is responding. The nanites are stabilized. For now." Even as she spoke, she knew the journey was not over. The nanites were stable, but their long-term behavior was unpredictable. Continuous monitoring and gradual reprogramming would be necessary to prevent future complications. Kale looked at her, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. "Lyra, I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," she replied gently. "You trusted me. That trust, that is what saved you." The two sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the outpost machinery a comforting background. Outside, the twin suns of Sigma 9 dipped lower, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. The alien wind howled faintly, but inside the isolation, Ward, calm and determination reigned. Lyra reviewed the data again, noting the subtle improvements in Kyle's physiology. His body was still fragile, but he was on the path to recovery. The nanites, once chaotic and unpredictable, were now responding to her guidance. This is human ingenuity at its best," she whispered to herself. "We're turning chaos into order. We're proving that even in the most alien conditions, human skill and determination can prevail." Kale's hand twitched beneath the blanket, almost as if acknowledging her thoughts. We make a good team," he murmured, a faint smile on his lips. Lyra chuckled softly. "Yes, we do. And tomorrow we'll continue. Step by step, your body will regain its strength. But tonight, rest. You've earned it." As Kale drifted into a much-needed sleep, Lyra remained vigilant. The nanites glowed softly beneath his skin, a reminder of the delicate balance she had achieved. She monitored every pulse, every signal, ensuring that nothing destabilized. Outside, the alien night descended on Sigma 9, the twin moons casting silvery light across the outpost. Inside, human courage, intelligence, and compassion had turned a crisis into a victory, small, fragile, but real. Lyra allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The battle was far from over, but progress had been made. Kale's body, once betrayed by alien technology, was now beginning to respond to human guidance. And in that quiet, dimly lit ward, two humans, one healer, one patient, prepared for the challenges ahead, united by trust, determination, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The crisis of the day had been met with resolve, and Lyra knew that tomorrow would bring new tests. But she also knew this. Human courage, ingenuity, and compassion could overcome even the most alien of obstacles. And with that thought, she whispered to herself, "We'll face whatever comes next, together." The Galactic Dominion's fleets gathered at the edge of human space. Thousands of ships, each bristling with weapons far stronger than anything the human colonies possessed, formed a wall of steel and fire. The warlord stared at the holographic display, claws gripping the command console. He believed victory was assured. Humanity had been weakened, their colonies scattered, their fleets diminished. Yet a name haunted him, more persistent than any tactical report or intelligence file: Captain Elias Kane. The old human remained in chains aboard the flagship, seemingly powerless. Yet his words had already reached the hearts of humans scattered across the stars. Every whispered story of his defiance, every tale of his calm in the face of the Dominion's laughter, had grown into a wildfire of courage. The human strike on the frontier world of Virel, Mara's fleet readied their small ships. They were few, many patched together with scavenged parts, but determination burned in every crew member. "We strike tonight," Mara said. "We have waited too long. The Dominion believes us defeated. They have underestimated us. Remember the old captain? He fights still, even in chains. So will we." Engines roared to life, and human ships moved silently through asteroid fields and gas clouds, avoiding Dominion patrols. Their attacks were precise, their strategy unconventional, exploiting weaknesses the Dominion had overlooked. Every strike, though small in scale, carried a message: humanity would not bow. On the colony of Tursus, hidden resistance cells cut supply lines, sabotaged communications, and coordinated attacks across sectors. Each act of defiance drew from Kane's presence. Though he remained imprisoned, his calm courage had inspired a network of resistance no Dominion officer could contain. The Dominion reacts. The warlord's fleet moved toward Sol, confident it would crush Earth and its colonies. Yet reports of unexpected losses kept coming. Supply convoys were destroyed, patrols ambushed, communications disrupted. The Dominion's commanders began to question their own plans. "Impossible," the warlord growled. "We outnumber them 10-1. Their fleets are scattered. Their defenses are weak, and yet they resist at every turn." Jorak, who had observed Kane closely, stepped forward cautiously. "My lord, they are not resisting with ships alone. They are inspired. Their courage comes from the prisoner aboard this flagship. Every colony knows his name. Every soldier fights because he did not surrender." The warlord's claws clenched. "He is just one old man." "Perhaps," Kelrith said softly, "but one man can inspire millions. One man can change the tide of war." For the first time, doubt gnawed at the warlord's mind. He had thought strength alone decided victory. Now he realized that belief, courage, and spirit were weapons the Dominion had never truly faced. Kane's calm in his cell. Kane heard the distant hum of the fleet preparing for battle. He remained calm. Chains bound his hands, energy fields held him prisoner, yet his mind was free. He pictured the human fleets, the scattered colonies, the pilots like Mara, and smiled faintly. The Dominion had captured his body, but they could not capture his spirit. Every action on the frontier, every act of resistance, every human who refused to surrender carried his influence. He whispered quietly to himself, so that only the energy field would hear. "You wanted war. You will have it." The battle begins. The Dominion approached Sol. They were met not by surrender, but by an organized defense they had not anticipated. Human ships swarmed like a living storm. Attackers struck from impossible angles, retreating before larger warships could respond. Mines hidden in asteroid belts tore through supply lines. Orbital defense stations thought destroyed opened fire from concealed positions. The Dominion's fleet faltered. Ships that had been confident of victory now faced chaos. The humans had no chance, and yet they fought as if the universe itself depended on their success. Every attack carried Kane's influence. Calm, precise, unyielding. Jorak watched in disbelief. "It cannot be," he whispered. "They are winning, even though they should not." The tide turns. The Dominion warlord roared in fury. He ordered, Massive bombardments tried to crush the humans with sheer firepower, yet every strike only strengthened their resolve. Human fleets adapted. Resistance cells repaired damaged stations faster than the Dominion could destroy them. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers, all inspired by the old captain's calm defiance, fought with relentless determination. In the heart of the flagship, Kane sat quietly. He could hear the sounds of the battle, distant but clear. The chains on his wrists were heavy, but his heart was light. Humanity's spirit was alive, unbroken, and unstoppable. Through coded signals, subtle messages, and the courage he had inspired in even a few Dominion officers, Kane had created a chain reaction. The Dominion was learning too late that they had underestimated not just one human, but the entire species. The Warlord's realization. The Warlord watched as his fleet suffered unprecedented losses. Ships burned, supply lines vanished, and communication networks collapsed. His officers hesitated, some defecting quietly, others openly questioning orders. "Impossible," he bellowed. "We are stronger. We are the Dominion. How can these humans resist?" Jorak stepped forward, his voice steady now. "Because you underestimated them. They are not weak. They are not fragile. They fight not for conquest, but for home, for family, for tomorrow. You cannot crush that with weapons alone." The Warlord's claws trembled. His empire, built on fear and fire, was faltering. One old human had ignited a movement stronger than any fleet, stronger than any weapon. Victory. Through spirit, by the time the Dominion fleet reached orbit around Earth, the battle had changed completely. Human forces had organized a coordinated strike. Mara's fleet and others converged, hitting critical points. Supply ships were destroyed, stations fired with precision. The Dominion fleet, despite superior numbers, was forced into retreat. For every ship the Dominion destroyed, they lost two in return. For every colony they crushed, another rose in defiance. Humanity had turned its weakness into strength, its scattered forces into coordinated resistance. The Warlord, watching from his command deck, could only roar in frustration. His empire had underestimated the humans, their spirit, their determination, and their refusal to surrender had become weapons far stronger than plasma cannons or fleets of warships. Kane's triumph. Though Kane remained in chains, he had already won. The Dominion had believed that capturing him would break humanity's will. Instead, his calm courage, his knowledge of survival, and his unshakable spirit had united humans across star systems. They fought not because they were forced, but because they believed, because they had hope. In his cell, Kane whispered quietly, "Now you understand what it means to challenge humanity." Jorak, who had watched from the flagship, could not look away. He had seen a single old man inspire entire worlds to rise. The Dominion had always counted on fear to control the galaxy. But fear could not touch hope, courage, or determination. Kane had proven that even one human could change the fate of millions. The Empire learns a lesson. The Dominion withdrew, battered, and humiliated. The Warlord's pride was shattered. His officers had begun to question the foundations of the Empire itself. Across human space, colonies rebuilt, fleets repaired, and communication networks strengthened. Humanity had survived not because of technology alone, but because of the enduring spirit Kane had reminded them of. And everywhere, his name became legend. In the whispers of pilots, the songs of engineers, the tales told on hidden colonies, the old captain lived on, not as a prisoner but as a symbol of the strength that comes from determination, courage, and the refusal to surrender. The last word, in the silence of his cell, Kane looked out at the stars. The war had just begun in a larger sense, but the Dominion had learned its first lesson. Humanity could not be crushed, underestimated, or silenced. They would fight always, no matter the odds. He smiled faintly, chains clinking softly. For centuries, humans had faced extinction, invasion, disaster, and betrayal. And yet here, they were alive, defiant, victorious in spirit. Kane whispered one last time, not to the Dominion, but to the universe itself. You wanted war. We gave it. The galaxy had learned in a single old human that humanity's courage was the greatest weapon of all.